On this episode of the Construction Dorks, we sit down with Jeff Elwell of Duggan to look at Volume 3 of our FreeTO series and talk about his steps in moving from VDC to CTO and now to head of Duggan Innovative Solutions. We talk about teams, tactics, strategy. It was a great conversation, and Jeff is always a wonderful guest, so sit back and enjoy the episode.
And we're live. That's right, episode
98,
We're continuing our FreeTO series,
Part 3.
sitting down with, well, a real CTO, not a FreeTO, Jeff Elwell from Duggan. Jeff, thanks for joining us today, man. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
Real good, man. Great.
I think we're good. I think we're ready to continue ranting after rant 1 and 2. We figured we can't go 3 solo, so we'd bring somebody who's been through the ringer and made it to the mountaintop, so to speak, at the CTO level. So I'm pretty sure everybody listening knows Jeff Elwell. But Jeff, if not, let them know kind of what you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been on the podcast circuit this week, so I think that I've even got more people. So my name's Jeff. I work for Duggan in Canton, Massachusetts, about 20 minutes outside Boston. Most of what we do is in Boston right now. And I'm the CTO at Duggan. I also am the founder of Duggan Innovative Solutions, which is basically our new consulting arm. And really what we're trying to do is like bring the power of a CTO that can drive change to companies that, don't have one or need that direction or need a development department or BIM or, what have it. So, yeah, no, I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited that you guys, instead of just critiquing CTOs, are actually talking to one.
It's easier to critique than to actually talk to one, though.
It certainly is, especially this one.
So I had a question because, you're not a traditional CTO, in part because of Duggan, but on the last show, and I hate to get right into it, but I feel like we should. On the last show, Trent was really talking about how the CTO is something that's hard for the executives to sort of fit into their structure because you don't fit under a specific vertical. You're like your own vertical, but you're serving the other vertical. So a lot of their value statements are tied up in what you do. How have you been managing that? How did you, when you said you wanted to pull off and build, CTO and also build, Duggan Innovative Solutions, how did you approach that with them and sort of set yourself up for having that vertical under your control?
Sure. So yeah, I think the first thing that catches me is you saying I'm not a traditional CTO. I guess I don't my whole journey through the industry has been kind of not understanding why things aren't a certain way and then just moving as if they are. And one of those things is the CTO, CIO. Me and Jeff Sample have argued over it for years, but really I think what the question is how can you gain momentum and cause change in as a CTO or a director of technology or anything at a company at a construction company. And I think that's really what I've been talking about for years, and everyone that's heard me talk or been to my shop or any of that stuff knows where it starts is with leadership identifying that that's something they need. And so very lucky in that I chose the place I was going based on what I saw as the freedoms I had to execute the change I wanted, right? And without anything, that starts with the leadership at your company. So your owner, your president, your CEO, your COO, those people are the people that you need to convince first, because as you're changing things, you're gonna have so many people go to these people and say what the hell is he doing? Why are we doing this? What is, and you need the backup of your leadership to really push through change where you are. The other part of it, is I guess it's as easy as saying proving yourself, but proving yourself through tactically planned um, you know, movements in your role. So that means like for every, for every one way out there passion project you have, like you need to execute some like boring efficiency stuff and you need to prove that like you can like have an actual ROI on something that's really hard to justify an ROI on. And you need to also like always be trying to improve the lives of your customers, which are the people internally at your company. And so, like, you're not going to get buy-in. You're not going to be like, they're not going to let you build a department of 15 people. They're not going to let you have developers. They're not going to, if you haven't proven the need is there. And by the way that you can prove the need is there is by solving things you can as you're moving. So, like, starting small solves problems that exist that are low hanging fruit and move to the big ones. Execute change at your company, but not just for change sake. And like b- build that department by doing it pieces at a time to prove to people like this is going to work because everything, right? It's proving that the money is worth like the change and the juice is worth the squeeze, right? And so I think that's really what it boils down to is like you need a culture. Culture is the number one most important thing. And then you need to like prove yourself, I think is the other part of it. And I'd be interested to hear like what you guys think about like the CIO, CTO, like role at the company and what that's developing into because like I said like I have my own thoughts on what it is but I know those are very different. There are CIOs that are doing exactly what I'm doing. There are CIOs and CTOs that are doing both jobs. So yeah, no, that's something that I've been thinking a lot about lately.
There's a bit to unpack there, but I think having CIOs and CTOs that kind of do your job, I think they're rarer and rarer because of the complexity of both sides and specificity of both sides. So you're kind of a, I hate to use that unicorn word, but we'll go back to a bit of a unicorn in that respect. Although I think there's probably a bunch of learning on the CIO side, on the IT side that you've had to do. I know as our conversations, like you said, we like to go at each other, but it's in the grace of somebody has to, represent the dark side here. So I get to do that. But it has evolved a bit, right? And it's interesting through this conversation, and in fact, not being on the last one and listening to it, I got to listen to it from the CIO lens and from that side. And there was a lot of things in there that I don't think if I was on the show, I would catch. And there's this appreciation of, like you said, Jeff, that you don't fit under, or Jonathan, you said this, you don't fit under something like you're your own vertical, but I think the CIO and the CTO there, that's one of the big is they they're not both required in every situation. I'm not saying that, but in a
Right.
situation where they're both required, they have to actually support each other's mission. They have to almost be each other's right and left hands to effectively move the organization.
Yeah, I
Yeah, I
think the
completely
CIO a
agree.
lot of being like infrastructure, right? The infrastructure, the the blinking lights, the wires, the the systems that are underlying and driving the business forward. I think the CTO and we use this term more and more too, the operational technology, like
That
the stuff that's in the details of project
Yeah.
based work of BIM to fab, everything like that. That's kind of the way that I've always differentiated them in my head. And you're right, Jeff. They're very complementary and they have to be. I don't when I was in that type of role on the operational side, I didn't need to know how all of our switches worked and whatever, but I needed to know that if I was going to bring a bunch of technology into a fab shop, like there's a whole bunch of networking that needs to be done. I need to be aware of that. I need to talk to the vendors about that. I need to, prepare our IT team to be ready to accept that kind of stuff in.
Yeah.
yeah, and
I
I
always
mean
looked at
that's
it,
the
I
infrastructure
guess,
thing is so important. Sorry, Trent, go ahead.
you're good. I always try to like think about it in a dumber way, just probably because that's how my brain works. but I always thought it's like the CIO is kind of focused on like building the house. The CTO is kind of like, all right, I'm gonna build the man cave. I'm gonna build the swimming pool, like the things in the house that. But Jeff, hit on something pretty interesting in his opening statement about. I think I'd like to tap into his ideas a little more on maybe a blocker a lot of people get is that we are trying to focus on the swimming pool or the man cave, but like he said, maybe we actually have to kind of like do the bathroom first. Like he's talking about these like more boring functional projects that maybe like if you're coming into this and wanting to like have this kick-ass role in the company, like I don't know if the best way to approach that conversation to an executive or try to prove that you're going to do that is by starting with these like elaborate things that like Jeff gets the privilege to do now, but it's probably after he did like, a powder room or something a little, maybe a little less cool in the minds. But I think as a help to the people listening, Jeff, it would be interesting if you could almost talk a little bit about like what some of those more boring, like functional things that you probably had to go after,
For sure.
to prove the value of the role. And I'm sure there's probably 5 to 10 of those for every like cool swimming pool or something cool that you get to do.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because like when we talk about it, it's hard for me not to think like timeline of my timeline in the industry and like really what it looks like is, and even now I'm still building those bathrooms. Like it's it's you start off with like the best for instance is like the Revit implementation. That's how I started. It was 2015-ish. Like not a ton of people were in Revit. And so it starts with like, well, first of all, it starts with like the education side and being good at like teaching. That's something that I feel like people like discount and think that just because you know the most about something, you're going to be able to teach it. And so that's like part of it. And then, but really like what that looks like is like what every project looks like and what every like climb to that final position looks like is that we started implementing Revit. There's an agreement that Revit doesn't have what we need in it, right? And so, which in 2015 everyone can agree it didn't for MEP. And so you go two routes, and one is to buy the things that you can have the add-ins and the ribbons and all of that. So that's the standard route, and so that's the route that we started down, and then we quickly realized that like this isn't working. It doesn't have the things we need. Like we were drawing half in PD 3D, half in CAD MEP. And so like what happened is that I took on a computer science intern, and that computer science intern started making some really easy add-ins, and then those really easy add-ins made quality of life for the coordinators better. And then it turned into, well, like, Jeff, like we should really hire a developer. And okay, there's like goal one, like get one developer. And then you just kind of pile it on that way. And so like it's out of need and prove like you kind of have to do it. So when building the team, right, you kind of have to do it yourself, like the work yourself to prove that that other person is needed. So like we need a BIM manager. So I'm going to be the BIM manager for 2 years until I can prove that I'm better off hiring a BIM manager and then do it. And the other part of that is like, it's a lot of like Wizard of Oz behind the scenes, like staying up at night and fixing all the errors in the program because you want everyone to think that they
Yeah.
did it right the day before. Like stuff like that, like going in and fixing all the pipe in the model that got disconnected because someone moved a riser and they don't realize, and but you don't want that, you want them to think they're doing good. So it's like those pieces of effort put together are all go into like convincing your your team, your leadership, your people that like this is working, and it's only going to work better the more robust we make it. And then it's like also like a lot of the time, you guys talked on one of the previous ones about how like it's hard to define ROI and a lot of the like change we're bringing and the technology that we're bringing. And so that's a big part of it too, is like defining the ROI and then being a go-between between the technology and the leadership, because the reason you have a CTO is because your CEO shouldn't be your CTO, your CFO shouldn't be your CTO, your owner shouldn't be your CTO. And so that person has to bridge the gap between what you're doing and what those people understand from technology, and like be good at presenting your vision and communicating that in a business sense. So like I can communicate my business vision in a technology sense, but I need to be able to do it in a business sense. And I think that's a huge part of it. But yeah, I could go forever about those little examples. Yeah, sorry.
Jeff, like for you, and you just kind of brought something up. So for you, it was important. And I felt the same way when I was CTO. Like I needed to have done the job for a little bit to truly understand it. And one of the things is like, usually if someone does those jobs, if you're like willing to go make all the sausage, you're not usually the person that's great at presenting it from an executive level. And we've already heard feedback. They're like, well, what if the person doesn't have an MBA? And I'm struggling a little bit myself, and I wonder where you fit in with like, I don't worry about that as much as what if that person doesn't understand what in the hell or how to do the things that we're trying to accomplish. Do you feel like now you've got to the point where you're not like, triple A plus app developer programmer, but you can direct all those people really well. I've watched it. It's like beautifully, but you haven't done all of that hands-on. How much of that hands-on do you think is really required to be a good CTO? And how much do you think that those other skills like setting the culture, doing the good training, being able to talk to and present to the executives, like where do you come down on the balance of that? Because I struggle with that.
Yeah, so I think those are like the split, but it was really hard for me because like I was always so hands-on. And
Yeah,
you're right, John, you do have a problem with that. And,
totally.
but yeah, and I was always so hands-on, and that it's like, and there's almost like a guilt there of like stepping into that other role and being the like more business side, because you're like, I'm not doing the same things. I feel like I'm not being productive enough. I feel like I'm not. But then, like, you step back and look at like the change that you're driving and the new things that are coming up and like all of that, and like you see what your role is. So now we've gone from like me convincing, but sorry I'm getting ahead of myself, because like I was always in those roles. Like it wasn't like I was like hired because I have an MBA and something and I got to like I went straight to CTO, and like no, I was the BIM guy, and then I was the BIM manager, and then I was the technology guy, and then I was the director of technology, and so it's like a stepping point. Like I don't think you need to know it all, but you need to know the concepts of it all so that you can lead on it. And it's also about like hiring the people that are more like specializing in the things you want. Like I my thing that I've figured out that I'm really good at is like team building, culture, driving change, like all of that stuff I'm great at. Like the technical stuff I know, but I have people that are way better at it than me now. And that's like kind of the what I want. That's the role I'm in, right? So I think that that's like it's just another thing. It's like I said, educating is like a skill that you have to develop. Like the business side of technology is a skill you have to develop, and it's like anything else. The more you work at it, the more you read up on it, the more you do with it, like the better you become at it. And then you're able to, like, the good thing about that is not only am I helping the company, but I'm also like getting my vision through by communicating better, figuring out how it aligns with the business goals and all of that. Am I
You
talking too
were
much?
talking. No, you're
No,
fine. But I want to go back to your opening your opening rant where you're talking a little bit about like the the organization being primed and ready for someone in this role, and you've taken this role, you've spun it into a business now where you're doing consulting, you're doing fractional CTO type work. Have there been organizations out there that came in wanting your services and you look around and realize that they're not ready, and then how do you prep them to get ready? Do you tell them no? You know, because I know that there's going to be people out there that are listening to this that want the role in there, and the company thinks they're ready, but as you kind of peel back the layers on the onion, things show that they're not.
Yeah. I think like I've always kind of said this about consultants, and I wasn't one, and now that I am, I feel it even more. But like, I think that my job when going into another company is just like what my job was is currently at EM Duggan, is like a lot of it is having the hard conversations, like being able to say, like, I had someone the other day say to me, like, we'll do this, this, and this, and then you'll present it so you can be a dick about it, and then we can, because they have to see those people every day. They're like, oh, he can come
Right.
in and tell us the hard truths. And so I do think that's part of it. No, we don't turn people away, but it is saying like a lot of the time it's saying like the thing that no one wants to hear, right? Like it's like you need, a lot of times people think that they're way further ahead than they are, or they think that they are more aligned internally than they are. And so
Yeah.
it's like you got to go in and say, well, we need to fix these four things before we even think of this. Like, but for the most part, honestly, like what I've seen is that everyone, like if you're contacting us about things, you're pretty ready. It's just that like a lot of it is like communication behind the scenes. Like people need to be aligned in their goals, and if your company isn't aligned in your goals, like you're gonna run into roadblocks, whether I'm coming in as a consultant or whether you have a CTO that's trying to do things. Like how many times have you guys heard people like, oh, I really want to do this, but like our leadership doesn't want to do it, and so we're
Hmm.
never going to do it. Like even down to like something simple like being paperless, or like, no, we don't want to be paperless, we're not, like that's not something we think's a priority. Like, okay, I mean, then I'll help you achieve your other goals, but like until you do these certain things, I don't think we can get the most out of it, right? So yeah, no, I think most of what we're doing right now is we're dealing with companies that want that change and just want like people that have been through it before, which is, I feel like quickly turning into my role in the industry.
It's you gave me a little bit of a flashback there, Jeff, that during the consulting days, and it's an interesting process that a lot of those, and I know you guys are growing the business, so I'll be interested to keep up on how it goes. But though, if you come across where they're like, oh no, we don't need all of those things, we just need these things, and you're like, okay, you keep saying that, but it's not true. Like you get in there and you're like, let me just interview a few people, let me just talk to a few people, let me just, and you find out they're like, hey, I go all the way back to like how certain software was built in our industry. It was like, hey, come back tomorrow. Today's the show. Come back tomorrow. We'll show you the truth. We'll like open
Yeah.
up the side doors and we'll pull the paper out and yeah. Because it is. Have you found people think they're farther than they are in some of the blocking and tackling and want to do the bigger things like you were talking about earlier?
Yeah, and I think that that's something that we all fall into. Like I will think that like I'm so far ahead in one thing, and then I look at the other things and I'm like, oh no. It's like something we all kind of fall into, is like what we want to do versus what we're doing. And like a lot of, I think any company, like not just people I've run into, not just EM Duggan, not just like any company, is like there's varying degrees of being aligned, but like I don't think any company is completely aligned on their goals and what they want to do. And so like I think that that's, like you said, talking to people, like that's the first thing, is you need to make sure that everyone is understands and is aligned with your operations. And that's like getting a little off topic, but that's like your CTO is one of, or your technology people, not your CTO, but your technology people are some of the only people at your company that are going to touch every vertical. Like your plumbers don't know what your
Mhm.
pipe fitters are doing. Your pipe fitters don't know what your plumbers and your pipe fitters don't know what the front of the house, it's like you touch everything. So you're like, someone said something about like technology operations role, and that's really what that CTO role is, I think. But yeah, for sure. Like I think a lot of what my job is as a consultant now is to like give people the breadcrumbs, the roadmap they need to get to where they want to go. And we've been looking, me and John have been talking a lot about doing like menus for people because a lot of the time, like you want to say like if this is what you want, you need to do these three other things. And if
Mhm.
you don't do those three other things, like you're not going to be successful at what you want. So yeah, I completely see that. But it's like everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do have a
I
question about something that I noticed recently, and I want to get your take on it. I don't think I've ever asked you yet, but I was going to a couple different companies while I'm consulting, and they really don't have anyone in the company that could be the CTO. But if I take any three of them, I could have what amounts to like a CTO committee. And I've been toying around with the idea of that, and I'm a little bit afraid to do it just because you need agreement and it doesn't hold as much weight. But, you know, Jeff was talking about you being a unicorn, and I don't think we can all find unicorns, but I think we could maybe make them out of multiple people. You know what I mean? Like if we get someone who's got just one horn, and then we get somebody who's kind of a horse, I think we can get a unicorn going. So, do you think that that's an option for some of these smaller
Well,
places? Is to sort of
uh,
build out a team rather than a person?
I mean, you're pretty familiar with me and our operation here. Isn't that kind of what we've done? Like we have, I have my skill set, which is like the presentation side of things and the business and trying to push like, the the ticket on R&D and all of that. But then like Jesse has a completely other skill set that I should probably have as one like great person, but no one could do both things. And then Lane has another skill set, and then Garrett has another skill set, and then Rich has another skill set, and none of them want to be the mascot that I am. But they like, yeah. And so that's like, I think that's where you have your technology department. And I think we get a little too caught up on like CTO. Like the reason for my outside super said to me like I always like thought you guys were like basically I thought you guys were losers with your titles and everything. Like when I see like when I talk to people, I tell them I'm a plumber and he's in charge of all the plumbing and the fire protection at Duggan. And when he sees people, he tells them he's a plumber. And then he was like, but like now I get it because like you can't say to someone like, sorry, you have to do this if you're the like the peon that's in the, that everyone hates and it has no power and doesn't have a title. But if you like earn that title and get to that point and you have that person that can say like, that's what we're doing. I think that's another big problem that CTOs or just leadership in that position can solve is like we're in an industry where sometimes the reason for not changing is because people don't want to. And like some of these
Mhm.
companies are making so much money that I don't know of another company at that size outside of construction where you're like, guys, we're switching to this. And people are like, no. And they're like, oh, okay, cool. Like, then we won't. Like, and, and so it's kind of like I think that there's multiple personalities that need to drive that role. Um and it's just like just because you're not leadership doesn't mean that like you can't influence leadership. And just because your skill set isn't the business and education side doesn't mean that your skill set isn't important to the functions of a CTO or a tech department. Like I think people would be more successful to build a tech department than they would to just grab a CTO and be like, tell me all your ideas, to hell with
Yeah,
executing them.
John, I like your idea. The one thing I would caution, because I've seen it a few times, that triangle of people or whatever that group is, you do, and this kind of speaks to exactly what Jeff just said, is somebody does have to have like the deciding vote and kind of be in
Yeah.
charge at, at a level, because there is a certain set of decisions and somebody has to take it happens. And so, but they can do it because exactly what you said, Jeff, you need those skills, and the title is more recognition of the organization. And it
Well, it's
takes
authority.
it
That's something we talked about before too. Is
Yeah.
having the authority.
I like committees I like committees to gather ideas and derive plans, but like you do need somebody to make the decision. Like, yeah, I mean, if it's three people's job, then it's nobody's job. Unfortunately, it's kind
Every
of,
team needs a mascot.
yeah.
Though I have seen with Jeff's team at least, and maybe he doesn't see it because he's on the inside. If it's not someone in his team, he does have this authoritative statement that he might make about something. But anybody on his team that runs up against something will ask him naturally anyways, not because he has the authority, but because I think he's got like enough unity around his vision that they just want to make sure they're not messing with the vision. Like, we believe in the vision for the company and we don't want to mess with it. So we're going to, like, Jeff was, I've seen a couple other people like this, like it's not like a unicorn thing, but like the fact that his entire sort of staff goes to him, not because he's their boss, but because he's got a better understanding of the vision, like there's actually a reason. And I thought that was neat about your staff. I was going to ask you, like, how you talked on stage a little bit about selecting good staff and how to select good staff, and about sort of getting that diverse team that's maybe not all from construction. Can you maybe expand on that for this crowd that's listening, so that they can understand, maybe they're trying to build out that team,
I think like a lot of what we're talking about is trust, right? Like, it all comes back to your company trusting you, your people trusting you, your team trusting you, like, and that's what like we try to do for everyone here. And I'll get to your question. Like, um the other part of that is like everyone in our technology department is cross-trained in everyone else in our technology department's job. So if we have like a problem, like meaning like not like something arises and it's a problem, but we have like a problem we need to solve for a job. Like, we have everyone on, all hands on deck, and it's like, just because it's a plumbing job doesn't mean that the developers don't have a good idea for it, or that the BIM guys, or that so like that's one of them. Like, everyone gets some C# training, everyone gets BIM training, everyone gets Revit training, everyone gets, the PM softwares we're using and everything else. And then I think like the team building side of it, right, is like, you want diversity in character, but you want people to share the same traits. So like, meaning like everyone is a problem solver, everyone uh is very invested in, like John said, like very invested in the vision, and they want to work towards a common goal. And like, the way that we started identifying people was people we had worked with before, how most people do, and like that were in other roles. So like, Jesse was an engineer. Our original BIM manager was a child psychologist, which works out really well in this industry. And so
Jeff's
but, like,
car gets keyed later today.
Everyone would admit it, myself included. And but like picking from those places, and like we have our development department's all computer science people, and they are like cross-trained in the trades, and so now they're just as knowledgeable in Revit as they are in C sharp. They're just as knowledgeable in like the plumbing code and this and that. And so it's people that want to like be well-rounded, people that want to work in a group that is constantly sharing ideas and that can converse with each other. And the other part of that is like you want to hire the personality and train them up. Like you guys all know people that like are in roles that they could probably learn any other role if you just taught it to them. And like it's the same thing with the tech. Like you don't need tech people. We have a kid that was in his fourth year of his apprentice, tore his ACL, and is now in my tech department and is like, you know, a great asset. Like it's just, I think that like a lot of it is the personality, the want for communication, and like people being abstract problem solvers. Like we don't want rule followers, we don't want step takers, we don't want like I will never get upset with someone for trying something and messing it up. Like that's all I want is try to figure it out. I have like all I want is lots of questions and lots of action.
Mhm.
And so you need to find those people that are like that always want to learn, that always want to like get better, but also that like I'm the first one that's willing to say like I don't know. Oh, I don't know that. And I probably shouldn't as like a CTO. There's this thought that everyone like the higher you get, you should know everything. And it's like you could never know everything. And so like you're never gonna get better if you don't say I don't know, and that's what I want. Like I can tell within we can hire a 22-year-old kid and I can tell within the first week if he's going to work out or not by when he doesn't have anything to do, what does he do? Like, is he
Mhm.
just sitting at his desk waiting for someone to come by and tell him? Or is he like, hey, I overheard you guys talking about programming. Can I see some of that? Or, hey, Jeff, I heard this. It's just, or they find the Revit tutorial online and start going through it on their own. Or, it's the personality that we're looking for, and then we can mold it into the skills.
I think that's perfect, and I think that one of the things that did serve me pretty well, and you touched on it, is the asking of the questions and not knowing, especially when you are trying to do process improvement across the board in different areas of the business that you obviously have no experience in. So there is that professional amateur that you have to kind of take on, and just I probably have annoyed people by all the questions I've asked, but I'm generally trying to understand why you do your job the way you do.
I might ruin it for myself here if I ever hire anyone that listens to this, but here's a tip to leaders. My normal like onboarding stuff that I've done when I hire people, I purposely leave what I know will be blank time in my task list because I want to see what they do when they get there. Yep. I've always done that, and I probably ruined it for my next hire, but because I'm always curious. I'm like, if they get through this list, like I want to see what they do. I mean, it's I've always found that to be good.
It's interesting. I just heard a podcast recently where it was a restaurant company that does a real rigorous training ahead of time and like shadowing and all this stuff. And then, first night you're out there on your own, you're ready to go. And the boss walks up and goes, okay, all that preparation, all that planning, it's all going to go wrong, right? And I'm going to know in the first shift, not by how few people you ask, but by how many questions you ask and how much help you ask for, whether you're going to make it here or not. And they were like, what do you mean? And you're like, well, if you try to carry it all on your shoulders and do it all yourself, you're not part of the team. You're going to and you're going to fail. So if you're asked 10, 15 people for questions and help, I know you're the right fit and I know you're going to make it. I also know you're going to fail tonight. So have fun. And I was like, that is such a good, because that's how it goes, right? I don't care how well you're trained. We train, apprentices all the time, and then we let them go, and what do? They get into an area where they don't know what they're doing, or something's different than it should have been. They need help, or hell, they break something.
Well, that
Everyone
good.
has a plan until they get punched in the face.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
there isn't a book for life, you know. I mean, there's a lot of books that help you in life, but there isn't a book for like how to life. I mean, you kind of have to go out there and work through some struggle at times to really figure it out.
I think this hits on something though, like with the leaving extra time, with having time between tasks. I talk to a lot of people that are trying to sort of manage the operations in their BIM shop, and they're like, "How many clicks per second did he do? How many feet of pipe did he put in today? How many?" And I'm like, "Holy crap! Like, are they supposed to learn how to do this like while they're doing it, and like they're not allowed to think about it while they're doing it? They just should tap all the time." But I think that mentality is pretty invasive, and like you said, Jeff, that's the culture that. Honestly, if you're in that culture, why would you even
Depends
stay there?
what you're
Not gonna
looking
move
for.
forward.
If it's a structured deliverable of production, then John, what you said, John, sure. I mean, but like Jeff said, if you're looking for creativity and out of the box thinking, then that method will stifle
Never
that
work.
all day long.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
it depends what you're looking for. If I'm an assembly line punching the same thing over and over, then yes, I want to know clicks per second. I mean, that's how you measure that. But if you're looking for creative solutions to A to B to, I mean, then yeah, doing that is not gonna. I mean, they're not gonna know how to do that.
I want to
Task
see a
specific.
different. Yeah, I
Yeah,
want to see
for
a different
everything.
calculation. I want to see the person who can do the fewest clicks and do the most stuff because they figured out all the tricks. And
That's
Right.
and that's the way. Because so if you look in that fixed mindset, you're never gonna look outside and see the person that's like, why does that guy have so much time? Because I automated half of what I do. You know, and
Right.
like I'm looking for what are you doing? Well, I'm looking for other stuff to fix right now. That's the team we want. So, well, listen, guys, we're getting down the rabbit hole here. We're FreeTOing. So I want to bring us back to the FreeTO. Jeff, what are some of the earliest, kind of roadblocks or barriers for? Because that's what we're getting is a lot of people hitting us and saying, "Hey, like you are preaching our story." Like I had one person who ended up having to leave the company, and then another that changed the role inside of the company, and quote unquote hid themselves somewhere where someone can help them. Like we're hearing all these stories. What are some of the things you can coach them on, or just tips? Because you said the low hanging fruit, etc. But what can people do to avoid some of the headaches that you've experienced personally, and EM Duggan did too? Because that's what innovators do, right? They had the culture to do it, but it wasn't smooth sailing all the time.
Yeah, I mean, like you have to get everyone comfortable with like planning for failure, right? Like that's if when I said to them when we were talking about like a leadership technology role or even just building our department is like if 30 or 40 if 25% of the stuff we try is working and implemented and works for over a year, like we're doing great. Like the skill that I need to have is to know when to pull it out and say, no, like we're done with this. This isn't working. That's the secret I have is that the reason that leadership trusts me is because I'll bail. Like if something doesn't work, I'm not going to say like, oh, but I implemented it and it was my idea and it doesn't work. And so I'm going to look really bad if no, like I tried it, it didn't work. It sucks. Like, on to the next thing.
We've already
And
spent
so
six
that's
figures
one of
on
the
this.
well, that's like
You want to spend six
why did
figures
you
more?
wait?
Yes, right.
Yeah, well, that's it. Why did you wait that long? Like that's it. Like didn't you know 3 months in it wasn't working? Like, and that's the thing. It's like the sunken cost thing is a really big problem and a really like you really, really, really have to take your pride out of it. Like I can't attach the how well I'm doing at work by how many like softwares we get are successful or by how many people like me or by how like really the gauge has to be like how efficient are we, how happy are my people with what they're actually using, the where are the bottlenecks, how can we make them better, but like you're gonna fail and you have to plan for failure and you have to make sure that your leadership knows that that's like a built-in thing. You're not gonna get better without fail. Like for some reason we like forget it. We our whole lives it's like practice makes perfect. If you like fail, try again. You don't learn without failing, and then we get here and it's like, shit, I failed, like I'm done. And it's like, no, that's you gotta roll with it and have a plan on what you're gonna do once you fail. And the other thing that is mostly an idea like or a concept that John's hammered into me, but I really believe in is like you start small and you scale, and that way your failures aren't enormous.
Right.
Like you get a proof of concept, you make sure the workflow works. Most of what we're doing is just process and procedure anyways. Like the software can only do so much. We're defining the process and procedure and then building the tools around it, not the opposite, and I think that's a big part of it too. But yeah, I think it's you're gonna screw up, you're gonna pick a bad solution, you're gonna fail at things, and you just got to kind of plan for it and come back better. And
Uh,
If
I
if you're
mean,
not failing, you're not taking big enough chances.
there you go.
but I
Yeah,
like it.
and
You caveated it in there because we joked about you're 6 figures in and you're gonna bail on it. You said start smaller and you should be failing smaller than that, but
Oh, fail small,
fail
yeah.
small. But I mean, I can imagine, especially as you build your consulting business, you're gonna go into a lot of places where they've got 6 figures or more, and it's going to be hard because I know because I've been out there doing it for years, and you hear it a lot, and that is a really because too, and you hit it perfectly. You can't judge yourself and rate yourself based on those things. You rate yourself on how your customers feel about you, your internal people, etc., or how efficient you're getting. A lot of them are tying it to that one thing. I brought that, I'll say it because if it's 6 figures, it's usually something like an ERP. I brought that ERP in, and I'm going to go down with it.
yeah,
Right.
So
yeah. I think
hugely
you've got
important.
to measure
Well,
that.
that's the other thing.
And
Here, go
and
ahead,
I'm
Jeff.
curious, Jeff. You can speak a little too what some of your methods are there, but I think John Marsh. You say it best in your, you hire your tech like they're your people, and I think this is how you know. I mean, the same way if I hire someone today, I generally have an expectation of their performance for what I'm hiring them to do, and I lay out this is my day one, week one, month one, quarter one expectation of what you're going to do, or we're going to have to figure out if this is the right fit or not. So to me, would you not lay out a day one, week one, month one, quarter one expectation for any software or tech you're bringing in? And I'm curious, Jeff, if maybe you're doing something like that or some strategies, because I don't know how else you'd know if you don't. There's got to be an expectation of what you were trying to do.
Yeah, no. So to before we choose the software, we have our own internal ROI calculator that takes in, implementation time, cost of implementation, cost of software, what workflows it's fitting into, how it improves those workflows. Is there a cost associated ROI or is it a perceived ROI? And then we kind of get our overview on that and can, like, if it's a perceived ROI, we're looking at outcomes. If it's a cost ROI, we're looking at cost. Honestly, like, one of the first, like, real cost ROIs that we money ROIs that we got was Stratus, and that was like a more recent implementation, but it's because it actually touches production. Like if it doesn't touch production, you're really doing it on like sentiment um and how much it's affected your process, right? And then like what you're describing as like the day one, week one, month one is more of like my usual implementation plan spans the first term of the software. So if we signed with them for a year, I have a year plan. If we signed with them for 3 years, I have a 3 year plan. And it's not always like super granular. It might just be that we're doing this, and this better. But like I have that like plan. So because then you can't really like implement something if you don't have that end goal. It's like building a job, right? Like before we build the job, we schedule it out backwards so we can find our dates and we can figure out how we can hit this end date. Same thing. Like you need a plan in place. I think people go in too quickly into software and then they just think implementation is just where you learn the software, but it's really like where it fits into your business more so than anything.
Well, I think we got to let that microphone hit the floor and call it on that one, because that is valuable advice. And I don't think it's the last time we're going to have Jeff on to talk about some of these things that come out in the FreeTO episode. So thanks, Jeff Elwell, for sitting down with us and, indulging the dorks in our fun time.
Thank you guys.
Before we wrap,
Speaking-
Jeff, I guess I know what we're doing here is the free TO. There is a slightly paid for TO service out there so I guess how can people get a hold of you, Jeff, if they're interested?
Can they get a hold of me? I didn't know which Jeff you're talking about. You can get a hold of me because it looked like Sample was going to talk. I was like, I thought that question was for
No,
me.
I was gonna wrap because I've been with you recently, so I was gonna tell him where to go.
You can get in touch with me at jeff@dugganis.com. And you can go LinkedIn, website, any of them. We kind of talked about like the supplemental CTO stuff, but we're also like doing lots of Stratus work, lots of Revit work, add-in work, tech stack,
Software development.
process, procedure, software development, API connections. So we're doing it all. So I just want more fun projects to be on. So if you guys have them, let us know.
Perfect. Well, before we go, I do want to shout out to Nathan Wood. I was at his AECI Summit earlier this year and somehow was named the Dork of the Year. So I got my trophy in. I wanted to make sure that I say thank you. I tried to pull myself out of the running and it did not work. So
You can't pull yourself out when you've been nominated that many times.
Yeah, that's like every time you've been nominated.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, listen,
very
thanks
much.
everybody for tuning in. Jeff, thanks for sitting down with us. This has been the FreeTO series. If you want to check out what Jeff's up to, you can check out and follow EM Duggan on LinkedIn or go to the website. You can follow Duggan Innovative Solutions. I suggest a follow on their LinkedIn. Pretty good stuff coming out of there. So let's see you next time.